All right. So our guest today is Tariq Harb. He's a Jordanian Canadian who is an immense presence in the classical guitar world. He's an incredible performer that's played all across the world, winning top prizes in international competitions and leaving his mark on countless big stages like Carnegie Hall, the Roman Amphitheater, Tokyo Bunkakaikan, and so on. On top of all of this, he's published 7 solo albums, several educational videos, and dozens of his own transcriptions, arrangements, and compositions. And currently, Tariq is a guitar professor at Concordia University and still very active in the festival, masterclass, and performing scene, as evident by the upcoming Vancouver concert hosted by our Guitar Society, which will be on September 27th at 7 p.m. at the Vancouver Academy of Music. So you can get your tickets to the concert at vancouverguitar.org. And there's also still time to get the full 2025-2026 concert season pass for a pretty nice discount. So get all of those. There's a huge lineup. And of course, we're starting off with Tariq to get the season going. So with that all being said, thank you so much for sitting through that. It's really good to have you here, and I'm really excited to hear what you have to say today.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me, man. Such a pleasure.
Yeah. All right. So let's start with the basics. How did you get started with classical guitar in the first place?
Classical guitar actually came a bit late in my life, as I'm a violinist originally. So I started violin when I was 6 years old. I did 2 years of that, gruesome 2 years without a shoulder rest. As a kid was like torture. So then I decided, let's try to, maybe put it a bit aside, maybe come back to it later. And that's exactly what happened. I did high school. I actually picked up a little bit of the electric guitar in my teens. So I did play with a band. We sort of formed a band for talent shows in secondary school, not yet in high school. In high school, I was totally off the hook, musically speaking. But then I just, had to study abroad as we all aspired to do in my family. All my siblings traveled abroad to the US specifically to do their higher education. They were very much into the sciences, and I was not. So I liked math. So they told me, why don't you go do finance? They sort of chose the major for me.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't know what I'm going to do. So I went and I did the finance degree at Concordia
Mm-hmm.
and graduated and worked a little bit here in the corporate world in Royal Bank and with Investors Group. And then I quickly realized that it's not really giving me the rewards that I used to get from music or even
Mm-hmm.
playing in a band with my friends. I used to be much happier, doing these things that I really love to do.
Yeah.
Even playing in orchestra as a kid. I remember even singing in choir as a kid. It brought me a lot of joy. So I sort of wanted to feel that again as an adult. And so I decided to just simply quit the finance and pick up the violin again and reapply in an undergrad at
Mm-hmm.
Concordia as well. So I had to basically buy a violin, find a teacher for it was like 8 months, I believe. I studied with that teacher and to prepare me for the audition. So because I did some electric guitar as a teen, I only knew the tabs. I didn't know how to read notes,
Mm-hmm.
and I forgot how to read notes as a kid playing the violin. So I remember first violin lesson. I went to the teacher with 4 lines and numbers on them. I tell him
Yeah.
I want to play this so it sounds like this. That's where you
Mm-hmm.
put because I sort of created a whole fretboard on the violin because
Yeah.
that's the best that I knew. And he told me never do that again. You gotta learn the notes. So, anyways, I quickly sort of picked it up and started playing, you know, some difficult pieces like the partitas and sonatas by Bach. They were
Mm-hmm.
requirements at the audition. So I did those and I got in, and I was so happy to be doing something that I love from A to Z. Like there's nothing that I don't like about music,
Yeah.
history or theory or technique or I love everything about it. So I was really in a happy place. I was feeling much better about myself, although the financially it was not the same as what I was earning from
Mm-hmm.
finance. I was ready to sort of buy a Porsche Boxster, which is what I wanted, as a finance
Yeah.
as a finance guy. But then I decided, you know what? I'll use the money to actually pay for my university,
Hmm.
my undergrad in music. And during my undergrad in music, I was also interested in jazz. So I did some jazz combos on the violin, and I did some jazz harmony and jazz history. And I also did some classical composition classes. And it happened that the composition teacher had a classical guitar with him instead of the piano. So he would teach us,
Oh.
whatever, tritone resolution or all the species counterpoint on the classical guitar.
Oh wow, that's impressive.
It's really cool. And I was like, that sounds really nice. Later, I discovered that he had a Thomas Humphrey guitar,
Mm,
a spruce Brazilian rosewood, and it just sounded
beautiful.
magical. I didn't know what, the makers and the whole classical guitar world. I was not aware. But I was like, I love the sound of that thing, and I want to learn it.
Hmm.
I want to basically take classes with that guy, you know. So, the teacher was Roddy Elias, great classical and jazz player.
Hmm.
I'm eternally grateful for him because he took me in as a student, basically beginner. The left hand
Yeah.
was okay because of the violin, but the right hand, it's nothing really. I
Hmm.
didn't know how to pluck. I had, no nails, and I didn't really know anything. Even I was like even against the whole position of the classical guitar because I was so used playing with a strap. I was
Yeah.
like, can I bring my strap? It's like, we need to learn why don't we just like learn the basics first and then decide if you like them or not?
Hmm.
It was during then, so that time, that I started really learning the classical guitar and applying, notation on the classical guitar. And
Hmm.
the whole thing between the classical guitar and the violin was very interesting for my mind. It was like a
Yeah.
switch, because reading on the violin is different than reading on the guitar.
Hmm.
Even you're reading the same clef, but they're all in different places,
Yeah, exactly.
The whole thing is a different interface. So it was very interesting, and was very enriching experience. So that's when I started, really.
Hmm.
I was around 26, something like that, 26 years old, when I
Yeah.
picked up the classical guitar. So yeah, it was, I mean, I've never looked back, never
Great.
looked, you know, back since. It was such a, I don't know how it came to be to have the courage to change a career, it's
Yeah. Not
crazy.
only that, but change a whole instrument so late as well.
Change the whole instrument and just like decide to go for it 100%. I mean, I probably would not have the courage to do that again, change,
Yeah.
change a career again. I don't know. A lot of people ask me like, how do you do it or whatever. I really don't know. It was like a calling.
Hmm.
It was like a magnetism in a way.
Did you
So
feel the same way when you started violin for the first time, or was this like really special for guitar that it just called to you so deeply?
something with the guitar, man. I really didn't know what it was. It being a solo instrument, maybe. I'm a very individual kind of person. I like playing the violin. I like playing string quartets and everything. Really enjoyed it. Really enjoyed the social aspect of playing an
Hmm.
orchestra. But I always sounded different. Like I always been told like, don't play so loud. Don't play so differently, blend with the section, always been told to do that. And it didn't bother me. It's just it wasn't natural for me
Hmm.
to just do the bare minimum, or you know what I mean, or to stay at mezzo forte or whatever it is.
Hmm.
Yes, I respected the dynamics, but there was always this. You can even in recordings, I swear to you, like when we used to record the orchestra, because I was in the first violin section, I could hear myself in the section, and that's not
Hmm.
good for orchestra.
Yeah.
That's not how you do it. So, as it's just a soloist personality, I guess. So the
Hmm.
guitar was it just made sense.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like I could play however I wanted, basically. But I hope I respect the styles and all that, and I'm still learning. But
Hmm.
it's that personality thing, I think, that I could not sort of be this or that way. I could only be myself.
Yeah.
So it seemed the guitar seemed just fit, like when you wear a glove and it fits nicely. It just felt
Hmm.
like that, perfect fit. Although I love the violin and the sound production, I try to always bring it to the classical guitar, and that's one struggle that I struggle with really, is to
Hmm.
have that sound pressure, from
Yeah.
the instrument, from the violin, and to translate that on the guitar. It's not the same.
Hmm.
So
Uh,
yeah.
Actually, speaking of sound, really quick, could I ask you to boost your gain a little bit again?
I'll just, I'll also probably bring this closer to me, so
Oh, perfect. That's so nice.
because I'm sort of speaking this way, and it's
Hmm.
this
That's perfect now. Thank you.
should be better. Yeah.
Great. So speaking of like violin sound production, do you find that your experience with violin has impacted your way of listening to guitar music or playing guitar music? Maybe, for example, like how you play the unaccompanied Bach works or any other of the violin transcriptions.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. I mean, in terms of sound production, uh, the violin has much less sort of holes in the sound, so it's much more filled up. And
Hmm.
I try to bring that to the guitar. It's tough because each note dies after you play it on a plucked instrument or
Yeah.
on the piano for that matter. But on the violin, you can really connect everything with the same body of sound.
Hmm.
So that's the challenge that I try to bring to the guitar and try to hopefully achieve. Um, in terms of interpretation for the Bach works, I try to not make them sound like a keyboard interpretation. So I try to keep them as a bowed string
Mm.
interpretation. So all the slurs, I keep them. And if there are slurs that because our slurs are, there's no continuous production of sound,
Yeah.
but I still keep them and I try to make them sound as legato as possible. Probably like how lute players would play those pieces. There is the other way of playing them is kind of imagining the guitar like a keyboard instrument. And that I think could work if you play like some of the Bach keyboard suites. It would work best. But
Hmm.
for the partitas and sonatas in particular and the cello suites, I still imagine like I'm playing a small cello or something.
Hmm.
You know what I mean? So I approach it that way. So I start from the score there. And if I feel like, okay, we need to add some basses to fill the texture and bring the characteristics of the guitar a bit more forward, then I'll do so. But
Great.
definitely start from the original score.
Mhm. And aside from your experience with string instruments, do you have any other personal musical influences? Maybe some non-classical music or music that you listen
Yeah.
to in your spare time?
Oh yeah, absolutely. Arabic music is sort of in my blood. I'm I wouldn't call myself a percussionist, but it comes so easy to me, like to play the
Hmm.
tabla or to do any Arab baladi rhythms or anything like that. It's just so easy that I tend to always bring that into my compositions. It's like I can't get that out of myself.
Yeah.
So all of my compositions have a little bit of that Arabic rhythm here and there.
Hmm.
So that's although I'm not an expert in Arabic music at all, I
Hmm.
wouldn't call myself that. So all the maqams and things like that, I know very briefly, and I play some on the violin, but of course on the guitar we can't really do that other
Yeah.
than bending the strings and trying to sort of get it by.
Hmm.
Yeah, so it'll be Arabic music that's sort of in my DNA, I'd
Yeah,
say.
literally.
Especially, yeah, literally, especially the percussion bit. I don't know why. I guess we grew up in class always, touching playing on the desks or whatever,
Hmm.
And then I had a tabla also, and I always experimented with it. I always admire those percussionists. They're
Yeah.
great, great, great. When it comes to rhythm, I mean, they're top notch,
Yeah.
very inspiring.
Yeah, I took a tablet class in Montreal, and the teacher was insane. They just had like 1,000 notes per second, and it was perfect.
It's perfect. Yeah, exactly, exactly. It's so inspiring. Like for me, it's inspiring, like with cross string trills or something like that, to bring that precision,
Hmm.
that that sort of power also. A lot of times you hear that as long trails, like for example in the Aranjuez after the first short cadenza, there are these long trails. I try to imagine it like a tabla guy doing tararara,
Yeah.
you know?
Hmm.
Yeah, I find ways to inspire myself using
Hmm.
that medium of expression.
Could you talk a little bit about Spirit, the piece that you'll be playing for the Vancouver concert? It's one of your own compositions. Could you talk maybe about the inspiration, some of the thoughts behind it, maybe what the composition process was like?
Yeah, I mean, that was a tumultuous time, honestly. Like I was not going through the best time because my mother was, in a way, she was going through a rough time, and she passed
Hmm.
away in 2019. And the Spirit was being composed during that time. So a lot of it has to do with childhood experiences. pertaining to my mother, where she's from, and how we used to always go to Gaza and to
Hmm.
Palestine to visit every year, because we're originally Palestinian, and I was born in Jordan, so I end up having both identities,
Hmm.
having like even like travel documents, you end up having both because your parents are Palestinian and you're Jordanian. So you keep both and they
Yeah.
encourage you to keep both because you never know what happens in the future,
Hmm.
You might be able to go back. So my parents always encouraged us to go and to, just visit my family because I had an aunt and an uncle, and also from my father's side, who was from Ramallah, West Bank. So we used to go there every year, every summer, and it was not the best experience, crossing the bridge,
Hmm.
Hussein Bridge over the Jordan River. So what would take you normally half an hour to go from Amman, the capital of Jordan, to Jerusalem, it would take you probably half an hour by car, maybe less.
Hmm.
It would take us about 9 hours
Wow.
to go through points and all the literal humiliation.
Yeah.
It was tough. It was tough. I would dread the day when my mother and father comes in, like, we're going,
Hmm.
prepare, so we're gonna go tomorrow, go a couple of weeks, whatever. And it was a nightmare, honestly,
Yeah.
because you had to go through that and through that humiliation each time, and then you arrive there and you okay, you see your cousins and all that, and it's nice, whatever, you have fun. But then to go back, you don't know how you're going to go back because you need a permit to go back. So sometimes you would spend 2 weeks planning to leave on the third week, and then they don't give you the permit to cross. So you
Mm.
end up staying 2 months there. End up staying
Yeah.
your, under curfew at 6 p.m. You can't walk in the street. Anyway, so that time was really tough, and I never had a chance to talk about it.
Hmm.
I never had the chance to express it and to sort of come to terms with it. So when my mother was going through that experience, and she she was suffering really, I felt I had to say something with the music. Something had to be said. So without even planning, I was just sort of one time just improvising little themes. I was so obsessed with Prokofiev at that time,
Hmm.
and I was analyzing his second violin concerto, playing it, analyzing, see what he's doing. I
Hmm.
was interested in that language, and this theme started coming out with me on the guitar. Just a couple of bars from the Dance of the Jinn, the first movement, and I'm like, okay, that sounds interesting. Let me see where it can go. And honestly, it wasn't like I couldn't say even that I composed it because it was just going on its own. I was just
Yeah.
letting it, I was just following the thread, and then it's sort of guiding me this way. It felt like I was just bringing information from another room to this room,
Yeah.
just
Wow.
so it's legible for people,
Hmm.
you can understand what I'm trying to do. It felt like I'm organizing sounds rather than composing,
Yeah.
which was very surreal. And that's how the first movement came to be. And I called it Dance of the Jinn because the Jinn is like a spirit that could be good or bad. It can help you or it can ruin you, basically.
Hmm.
But I felt like I had a good Jinn, next to
Yeah.
me that's doing the job, and I'm just like writing it. It was really surreal. So I started some friends that they told me, man, like you gotta do a second movement, or you gotta, I don't know, do another piece or something.
Hmm.
So I started then thinking of childhood memories. And I remember being in my grandfather's house in Gaza, and we had this clock, the grandfather's clock, that would always ring at night and wake me up. And then when you wake up, you hear sort of the hustle and bustle of the city or whatever you
Yeah.
hear out there. We don't need to mention what we hear, but scary
Hmm.
stuff, right? So you stay up and you try to sleep, whatever. But that was sort of a recurring experience.
Yeah.
So I decided to do a second movement imitating that clock and sort of just trying to put into sound these moments that I experienced.
Hmm.
So there are some explosive sounds, there are the chimes of the clock,
Yeah.
the ticks of the clock too in the second movement, Midnight. And so it started. I felt like the creativity juices were just going, and
Yeah.
I just kept going. So I did the rondo, the third movement, which is purely an exercise in composition. I just
Hmm.
wanted to write the rondo. and very much inspired by Prokofiev. So that's also a very quirky theme there.
Hmm.
Fourth movement, Meditativo. Again, I really don't know how that one got composed. It is probably the favorite of many who play the piece. They tell
Hmm.
me the fourth movement is the bomb, you know? You gotta
Yeah.
release that single or something. Like, okay, I'll try to make every movement to be playable in of itself, you know, sort of like the Villalobos preludes.
Yeah.
You know, you can play each one in of itself. It's all good. You don't have to play the whole thing. But
Hmm.
I think it makes sense to play the whole thing because the fifth movement brings elements from the second movement and some other elements from the
Yeah.
others. It sort of makes sense in the end. I hope it does make sense.
Hmm.
In the fifth movement, I call it Motherland, and that has the baladi rhythm. So there's the tabla influence there.
Yeah.
And there is some themes from the Egyptian singer Kulthum. One theme
Oh,
from Inta Umri because my mother loved that song so
yeah.
much. She would just sing it all the time, even though she had a very bad voice. But she was, we had to listen, you know. We had to go through it. But she loved it so much that I decided, you know what, I'll just put a little bit of that theme. And I remember I played it for her and she was very happy. So she
Hmm.
got to listen to bits and pieces of the composition. But
Yeah.
unfortunately, she didn't hear it in its entirety.
Mm.
So I like to play this piece just because I feel like I don't feel as a composer because to compose I have to go through this tragedy each time, and it's not
Yeah.
sustainable. You don't want to be in tragedy each time you want to compose. So
That's right.
so I like just to show this piece. It's just a moment in my life that I went through.
Hmm.
So
That's beautiful.
it sort of like carries my mother's memory also, you know, with me. So I
Yeah.
feel it's a bit like therapy if you may.
Yeah, I guess so. Mm. That's interesting. When you were speaking, it reminded me a lot of how like Brahms described how he composed his music. It's kind of like just waiting, sitting for that like little thread of divine inspiration, and you just like the channel for it.
Yeah, and I was lucky to have a guitar that was, I call it the composing guitar.
Hmm.
It was a guitar that I don't know why, the instrument was sort of also helping and allowing me to imagine.
Yeah.
Because some instruments, they're sort of allowing me to perform very well, but not so much to create. I don't know
Oh,
why.
interesting.
I don't know why.
Hmm.
Spruce stops tend to do that, help me create.
Yeah.
I don't know why. There's
Huh.
something about spruce, like a good spruce, you know.
Yeah.
Very rare to come across, but when it comes, when you encounter it, it's nothing like it. I think another topic completely, but anyways.
There was one more piece that I wanted to ask about in the program that you have, which is the Susie Auclair piece, Suite Number Two, because that's a relatively new composition, right? Maybe just like a
Yes,
year or two old.
I think Susie composed the first movement, I believe, or the second movement way back,
Oh,
long
okay.
time ago. Yes, and she recently completed the whole work 2 years ago, as you said. And Susie is a great composer. Oh my God, she's so talented. She has the innate talent to compose beautiful counterpoint and beautiful melodies and something that reflects her own struggle so well that you cannot help but sort of like guard your tears, you know, when you're learning this
Hmm.
stuff. It's really powerful, you know, and she's writing in a neo-baroque idiom. It gives you the freedom to play it a little bit in a modern way, not necessarily in the baroque stylistic aspect, like historically informed performance practice, you know,
Hmm.
even though it's very much a baroque suite of three movements,
Yeah.
you know, but still it's a neo baroque piece, and it's just full of emotion, and it's crazy. Like, I don't know if you've heard some of her works already. Some other guitarists are playing her works too, and we're doing this sort of, she hired us to do this project where we travel across Quebec and do her music, play her music,
Oh,
only her
wow.
music in concerts.
Yeah.
Yeah. So there are some other guitarists like Chris and Adam and these
Hmm.
guys. Yeah, they're playing some of her other pieces, which are also like very impactful. Yeah, so I hope the audience enjoys that because she has a degenerative disease, I believe. I'm not
Oh.
entirely sure of the terminology of what she's going through, but she cannot basically play anymore. It affects her ligaments and her
Hmm.
muscles to the point that she cannot, like, for example, hold herself up without hurting herself or anything
Right.
like that. So she has some braces, and so she's very limited in her movement now. So
Hmm.
she can't really play the way she played. Although she's a great player. She played with orchestras when she was 11, 12, 13 years old. So
Wow. Yeah.
she's I would say for guitar that's prodigious.
Yeah. Absolutely.
So yeah, she's that kind of player and composer. I think now she has wants to dedicate her life to composition, and we are very lucky because she's really talented.
Hmm.
Really like melodies that hit deep, you know. It's- yeah, yeah. I like that. Not everybody
Hmm.
is into, tonal music. Some people like decide to do other stuff. But when tonal music is good, man, you can't deny it. It just grabs you,
Yeah.
just
Absolutely.
takes over. Yeah. So that's her kind of music.
Mhm. So picking up on a thread that you kind of touched on previously, when you started performing for guitar, did you have, I guess, a very instinctive comfort on the stage?
The stage thing, that's such an interesting thing because I did it as a kid, you know. When I was playing, I remember at 6, 7, 8 years old, we used to go to Jarash, this Roman city in Jordan. It's still intact. Like you see all the Roman arches and the columns and the amphitheaters. They're huge
Hmm.
amphitheaters in that. And we used to be with orchestra, and at the time, the king and queen used to attend.
Oh.
A lot of pressure,
Hmm.
to do well. And I remember everyone was sort of pressured to do it. I didn't know what that meant. Like I
Hmm.
wasn't aware of performance anxiety
Yeah.
until, I mean, some people might hate me to say that, until I joined McGill University for my master's.
Uh-huh.
Because before that, honestly, I did not know what performance anxiety was. Yes, I
Hmm.
felt butterflies and excited and sweaty hands and cold
Yeah.
hands. But I never thought of it as something that I have to study kind of separately
Mm.
or work on separately. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? It just felt like, because I also was a basketball player. So I was quite a good one, I must say, because I was captain of my team and I always used to, lead my team. And we go on the court and it's the same feeling.
Yeah.
Sticky hands, the ball in the beginning doesn't feel right.
Hmm.
Bouncing is funny. But then you start sweating and you get into it and voila, it's
Yeah.
done. You know? So that it's the same thing as going and say, except we're playing nylon strings that stick to your fingers if your fingers are sticky,
It's
and your
true.
motion should be a millimeter precise. If a millimeter off, you're gonna buzz or whatever.
Hmm.
So yes, it's a very much more intricate practice. I would say you're using smaller muscle groups instead of large muscle groups, like basketball. So, but the performance anxiety thing, it was something very natural, part of what I experienced as a child,
Hmm.
I think. So when I brought it, especially with the violin, I didn't think of it like during Concordia. I never thought of it. I remember some people freaking out before going on stage for orchestra, and they had to, I don't know what they were doing, stuff with their towels and stuff.
Yeah.
I don't know, they had some special stuff. And fruits all the time. Fruits. I'm like, what's up with the fruits? There's so many fruits backstage. Once we should grow trees, behind backstage or something. But then, the pressure started mounting. I started my masters because that was sort of the split. Do I do
Hmm.
violin or guitar for masters? And I decided to go guitar, and I applied
Yep.
for McGill. So before entering McGill during that summer or just the end of the winter semester, I remember our orchestra wanted a guitarist because there was the Aranjuez happening during the orchestra. So I remember telling the conductor, Maestro, I play guitar, so I can do the part. Of course, I didn't know what I was talking about, right?
Yeah.
Didn't know Aranjuez, nothing. It's like, we just need a guitarist to do the Aranjuez next season. If you know anyone, let us know. We're doing an audition so and so date.
Hmm.
I'm like, I play guitar, so I can do it. You don't need to look for anyone. Like, don't worry about it. He's like,
That's so
no,
bold.
no, 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 no. You're a violinist. You know, take your seat. Basically, we're playing Beethoven's Fifth. We need you.
Hmm.
So, so I'm like, no, maestro, I do play guitar. So I mean, like, yeah, I'll come to the audition if it's necessary. He's like, okay, be my guest. So that's when I started going crazy in terms of taking lessons.
Hmm.
I took lessons with Gary Antonio, who was in McGill. Took lesson with Patrick Kearney, who was at Vanier. I remember even taking lessons with Jerome
Yeah.
just to kind of figure out this thing, just to take more. Or maybe Jerome was even later. I was during, it was Jerome actually. I was in at McGill. It was with Patrick and Roddy and Gary that I took lessons just for the Arajuez, just to learn that piece.
Hmm.
And that's when I experienced performance anxiety for real, like to the
Yeah, I
max,
can imagine.
max to the max. I remember backstage, I was just like freaking out, man. And I'm telling the conductor, like, Maestro, any last words? And he's doing like the boxer thing. He's like, and he's punching my shoulders, man. Tell me, just have fun, man. Just have fun. I'm like, okay, he's chill. I'm gonna try to be chill. so, so that's when I felt it. I'm like, okay, I gotta figure this out. I gotta.
Hmm.
And then I discovered, okay, like, don't eat too much before your performance. Don't eat spicy food. Don't drink too much water like crazy. Like,
Hmm.
just be a bit more like moderate with everything. Get some good sleep, so on and so forth. So I
Yeah.
got I got better at it just because I sort of learned to regulate it, I guess.
Hmm.
Yeah.
So nowadays, do you have some kind of maybe pre-concert ritual or some habits that you typically do leading up to the concert, like aside from maybe like this spicy food and so on
Yeah,
that
yeah,
you
and stuff like
mentioned?
that. Yeah, I mean, there's nothing particularly important. It's just, I think it's in the staying sort of serene
Hmm.
feeling just throughout the day. So I try not to get into arguments.
Yeah.
I try not to overreact to things, or I try to just stay chill in general. And of course, before like an hour or so, if I eat, I don't eat too much, not too much oily stuff. You know,
Hmm.
try to stay hydrated. But backstage, I do sort of a breathing exercise that I think helps a lot. And I learned it actually at McGill with a pianist teacher at that time. He was telling us what he used to do. And he told us about this exercise called progressive muscle relaxation.
Oh yeah.
So you sort of tense a group of
Hmm.
muscles, you breathe in, you hold the breath, you tense even more, and then you release the breath and the tension in the muscles.
Hmm.
And you go up, let's say you choose to go up the body or down the body. But he's like, guys, be careful, you might sleep. So it's like, yeah, so stay awake, don't fall asleep. And it does work even if you're having trouble sleeping, let's say, you can
Hmm.
do it and you just drift
Yeah.
away, you know? So I
Hmm.
tend to do a little bit of that, not too much. I don't want to feel too cold or like cold as in not warmed up,
Yeah.
because I like to be warmed up. I stay with my instrument pretty much
Hmm.
the whole time before I go backstage. I know some people maybe put it on stage, put the instrument on stage. I don't do that. I just
Yeah.
stay with the instrument. So I do a bit of this breathing, and yeah, that's pretty much it. I mean, I think it's always going to be the case when you first play the first couple of notes on stage. You're always going to be feeling a little bit awkward, adjusting to the chair or the audience
Yeah.
in front of you, the sound that's coming back at you, the whole vibe of the hall. So once I get used to that, I feel it's I mean, it's just like any other playing experience.
Hmm. And how do
Although
you
I
feel?
learned,
Oh.
if I may say, I learned to imagine a concert like as if I'm a hosting a party or something.
Mm.
The audience are all my guests, and I want to make sure that everyone has a good time. So that's how I try to teach my students now, is to simplify it a little bit. Imagine you're throwing a party
Hmm.
or coming over. You don't want to stress them out. You don't want to show that you're stressed. Even if you're stressed, you want to make sure everything's good. The food is cooked.
Yeah.
The booze is in the fridge. Whatever, right?
Hmm.
You still want them to come in and like as if everything is good, everything's ready, everything's fine.
Hmm.
So in a way, I try to embody that and to help sort of welcome everyone. So I look at people. I tend to talk between pieces.
Hmm.
I try to keep a smile, maybe like lighten things up a little bit,
Yeah.
because the environment can be very stressful when it's just like very strict,
Hmm.
and that tends to stress me even more. So I try to, some people say break the ice or whatever, but I just try to make it like just what it is, a social event, and that it
Hmm.
is what it is. It helps me a lot.
Hmm. And do you feel any difference between when you do performance for a live audience versus when you're doing your recordings? Because you've done so many CDs now at this point.
Yeah, oh yeah,
Is the
absolutely.
recording process more scary, less scary, comfortable?
Yeah, I don't think that's scary. I don't think any of them is scary, to be honest. I think the recording itself is sort of like building a puzzle. You
Mm.
know, you want to create the perfect pieces that fit perfectly together. So it's a different approach completely to a live concert.
Mm-hmm.
I think a live concert is where I can actually be myself 100%.
Mm-hmm.
Whereas a recording, I want to be maybe, yes, myself, but also what I like to hear myself to be, you know?
Right.
There's a little bit more of the acting going on. Whereas on stage, I can be 100% myself. That's the
Mm-hmm.
time when I can actually be 100% myself. So I try to let go completely on stage.
Yeah.
On the recording, I also do that, but I want things to be absolutely perfect. So there's more restraint
Mm-hmm.
because I know the mic is listening also differently and different than a concert hall.
Yeah.
So, but I prepare for both similarly. Oh yeah, absolutely, absolutely. Because I want to be comfortable play. I don't want to be thinking, oh, this passage is coming or that passage, I don't know what happened to it or, you know, I want it to be as natural as possible. So I over prepare.
Mm-hmm. And speaking of which, do you have any kind of formula or a general approach that you use to learning new pieces?
To learning absolutely a new piece that I've never heard or,
Mm-hmm. Sure, yeah, or
yeah,
anything. Maybe ones with pre-existing recordings or ones that are just like fresh commissions.
yeah. I try to not listen to recordings when I play music and then I listen to everything,
Mm,
you know, just to see if I actually caught the score the way it should be
yeah.
interpreted. So I try as much as possible to just get into the score itself. There's a lot of information in the score, and
Mm-hmm.
I try to extract that. Even sometimes when we were reading, we miss some stuff.
Yeah.
So I try to really dissect it and try to understand the composer's intention from the score solely. And then I listen to as many versions as I can
Mm-hmm.
and try to see if I can be inspired or try to understand why some performers did certain decisions. And maybe I've missed something so I can go back and work on it. So it ends up being like a layering way of learning the piece.
Mm-hmm.
But I do work on it like sort of try to read it first
Yeah.
in real time as much as possible, and then I work very slowly and you know try to also stay true to how I like things to be so that it becomes a marriage sort of the piece itself and my character.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, I know it's tough to try to explain that, but it's to me it's so important to have a personal voice in whatever I am playing. I like to like because I'm a big fan of some of the older violinists, you know, 19th century
Yeah.
violinists, Russian violinists in particular. And I can tell that person when they play, even when I hear first couple of notes, I can tell it's that person.
Mm-hmm.
You know, whether it's Heifetz or Milstein or Oistrach or Yehudi Menuhin or whoever, I can tell immediately
Mm-hmm.
that person is playing, you know, because they all had this personal sound,
Yeah.
you know, and I find it magical to have that. And it's tough nowadays to do that because education is becoming more similar across the board.
Mm-hmm.
So a lot of people are sounding more or less like each other. Guitars are also being built in a certain way to sound a certain way, you know. Like if you play an old Miguel Rodriguez, sounds very different than a Boucher, very different. I don't know if now all the double tops sound similar, but they tend to have similar characteristics.
Mm-hmm.
So it tends to shape your interpretation in a way and make you sound similar to the person next to you. So finding that personal voice, I think is the hardest thing to do nowadays.
Mm-hmm.
I
What
just
kind of
try to.
things do you do to try and get that personal voice for yourself? Do you have any specific things that you try to aim towards to have like the Tariq Harb sound when you're
Yes, I'm not
making
sure,
interpretation?
honestly. I'm not sure. I think it's just staying in a way true to what you like, even if it's not the general consensus. You know, of course, you want to meet, let's say, industry standards, if I may say so.
Hmm.
But you also want to do the things that you like to do, even if they're not accepted so much. For example, like let's say sliding too much, you know, and playing tariga or something.
Hmm.
Not many people do that nowadays. It was much more prominent back in the day, you know, probably at the time of Barrios. You know, you can hear his recordings how they are pretty insane. No, it's very different than how we play Barrios now, and it's
Hmm.
him playing his own music.
Yeah.
He's just being himself 100%, and he likes that. So I think it starts like away from the guitar, like liking yourself, liking what you do, and learning, being open to learning also, not just saying, okay, this is what I love to do and that's it. But if something grabs you, be curious as to why did it grab you? Is it something that you like also? Let's add it to the repertoire. You know?
Hmm.
Let's add it to our sound. And also, I worked on my vibrato a lot, so I think vibrato has to do something with it. You
Hmm.
know, every person has a vibrato. It's almost like a fingerprint.
Hmm.
So even some people, you know, they try to teach you a certain vibrato. I would not teach vibrato. I would teach just how to do it if they don't know. But then I'll let them do it
Hmm.
because they will shiver and do it in their own way. Not tell them make it narrow or make it wide or make it whatever. Because then you're shaping them to how you are. And
Hmm.
you're taking them away from how their own voice. You know, I think teaching the basic mechanic, yes, and what you're looking for to
Hmm.
sort of emulate the voice or whatever, or a violinist, and then that's it. You should not, I would not discuss it further. Let them do it on their own. They will have a slightly narrower vibrato. Maybe they will do more narrow for certain repertoire or find more wider for romantic repertoire. Whatever, let them do it.
Hmm.
You see what I mean?
Yeah.
There's a lot of teachers nowadays that tell you it has to be narrow and fast or whatever. I don't think that's true. If you listen to violins, both string instruments, there's countless types of vibrato out there,
Yeah.
and they can all be very beautiful. So, so that's one way I think. And also sliding, you know, like portamento.
Hmm.
How do you do portamento? Like a lot of time in the portamento in the violin, you take one finger and then you sort of hammer the next, right?
Hmm.
Like that. We never do that on guitar just because we're known not to produce that note with the fourth finger. But why not? No, you can do it. You can hammer
Hmm.
hard enough to make it sound like a slide and a portamento at the same time, you know? And
Yeah.
that gives a total different taste to the movement, you know, to the
Hmm.
glissando. So it's things like that. Also rasgueados. Like if you look at rasgueados, everybody goes for the rasgueados as much as possible. We learn from flamenco, which makes sense. But there's all the rasgueados from Gaspar Sanz and people before flamenco. And you can find your own things too. You know, your own sounds, your own scrapes, your own. I think I got inspired from that by seeing the great guitarists that were around me when I was learning guitar, because Quebec has a wealth of great guitarists. You know, and when you see people like Remy Boucher or something play, you know, with
Hmm.
his very individual, absolutely gorgeous. You know, I know some people might not like it or whatever, but I will not dismiss a player just because I didn't like one thing. You know. Just like you would not dismiss a speech by someone just because you didn't like one sentence.
Hmm.
Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And you can see that individuality and you can tell, okay, that person started inventing basically to get better and not just imitating. You know, first you
Hmm.
imitate, but then you have to invent.
Yeah.
So I think it's in the invention where you start really creating your own voice. Because you're literally inventing stuff that nobody's really teaching you. Whether
Hmm.
it's handling one phrase or learning to do a glissando in a way that you like it, you know. So in the end, we go back to the same thing: is allowing yourself to be, which is really difficult nowadays.
Hmm.
Allow yourself to be yourself, you know. Things that you like, keep doing them. You know?
Great.
Yeah.
All right, so let's just go for maybe one final question, and then we're going to open the floor to some viewer questions, just to round things off. So just one more thing for me. And if anyone in the chat has any questions, please feel free to ask them now, and we'll just collect them and ask Tariq at the end. So final question for me. What are some things about being a musician that you think don't get enough attention or that people maybe don't talk enough about nowadays?
Being a performer, or you mean
Yeah,
like
performer or educator or just somebody who just loves playing music as a hobby? Classical
uh,
guitar?
do you mean like what we go through as musicians, sort of every day kind of
Yeah.
thing? Or yeah, I mean, it is, of course, like if anyone would like to do this thing, they will know that like it's the obsession that will take you to it. It's not even a decision to do it, I find. Do you know what I mean? Like you're really obsessed with this instrument or this repertoire or this one piece that you would love to play, that it just takes you there. You end up buying the guitar, finding the teacher, buying the strings and learning. It's not like, okay, I want to become a guitarist tomorrow. So you go to the store today. No, it's not like that. So I think it's sort of also being like in touch with the things that you really love. So I'm not sure if this is answering your question, but I think if you also remember the things that you loved to do as a child, or the things that grabbed you, or that pulled you towards, I don't know whether you saw, I don't know, a concert and a certain instrument, was particularly interesting to you, that would probably come more natural to you if you decide to learn it than to sort of force yourself to play double bass because you have big hands.
Right.
Do you know what I mean? So it's those things that come naturally. I think that we as musicians end up cherishing in a way, that trying to be yourself as much as possible, trying to listen to, especially when you're practicing, listening to your body, how you feel. The one thing that we lack, for example, that sports people have is like a massage therapist or,
Right.
or a psychologist, which I would love to have for every musician,
Yes.
It would be great. But our industry probably doesn't make as much revenue. Therefore, we don't have these at our disposal. But I think every musician needs that, and in a way, we learn to be that for ourselves. You know what I mean? We are our own therapist, whichever, whether physical or mental.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? But of course, we shouldn't be afraid to ask for help when we need it. So I'm not sure if that answers your question.
Yeah, no, it's perfect.
Some of the things that pass through my mind when you ask that.
Great. Okay. So some viewer questions. Have you ever played flamenco?
I would love to play flamenco. Actually, I learned some of the rascados from my flamenco friends. And sometimes we do a little bit of the rumba thing, the rumba flamenca, and we do some solos and stuff. But I never really played flamenco in terms of learning the dances and the forms, and even a flamenco guitar. I have a very nice Miguel Rodriguez guitar that has a golpeador on it, and I practice my golpe on it. But that's my extent of flamenco playing. It's a classical instrument from 1980. It's similar to the ones that the Romeros used to play. Really beautiful instrument, but it has a nice golpeador on it, and I can do this thing, with the nail on the board.
Great. Yeah, another question. What Levantine dish should I cook tomorrow? And also, have you ever played the oud?
Oh, the oud. I've never actually played the oud like professionally or anything like that, but I'm doing a duo with a oud player, a friend of mine, that we actually already recorded an album of Bach inventions and some Turkish music, and it'll be released in 2027.
Oh, exciting.
Yeah, exciting. And it'll be on a label. I won't mention which one because we're still in the works. But that's I always sometimes try oud and things like that, and I can figure it out because I'm a violinist, so I can figure out the no fret, the fretless thing. And which Levantine dish? I mean, if you can do the Arabic turkey, you will make everyone extra happy around you. With the stuffing, the Arabic stuffing, with the rice and the ground beef. I make it every Christmas, and it's like, it's the type of food where you eat and you're gonna continue eating your hand also because it's so good. Yeah. But you can go for hummus. Hummus is good and it's easy to make. add ice cubes in the mix.
Great. Okay. One final question from the viewers before we call it a day. Do you have any tips on writing for guitar as a composer?
Oh, interesting. I would say, as for guitar, especially for guitar, I would think of. I know that sounds funny, but I would think of like a blank page with no rules. You know, nothing. Like, if you like to compose in certain structures, of course you have to learn that. You know, if you're, especially if you're writing a fugue or a sonata or anything like that, you will have to learn sonata form. Fugue is very difficult to learn to do it properly. But I would say one thing that we can do as guitarists if we want to compose is learn from guitarist composers, those who actually wrote in a way that's a bit outside the box, like Villalobos. For example, he was a master at using the open strings.
Mm-hmm.
Right? With any shape he goes, there was an open string somewhere
Yeah.
that was the connecting thread. If you look at all his preludes and stuff, I mean, he was really a master at doing that. And I think that's a great thing because it makes the guitar sounds bigger.
Mm-hmm.
So as a composer for guitar, I think that's one thing that we can use to our advantage is composing with these guitaristic harmonies
Yeah.
while taking advantage of the open strings. For sure.
Perfect. All right. Well, let's wrap things up there. So once again, September 27th at 7 p.m., the Vancouver Academy of Music will be hosting Tariq Harb for the start of the 2025 season. So head to vancouverguitar.org to find out more, get your tickets, and listen to this amazing Canadian maestro play some of his own pieces and a huge other beautiful program of amazing works as well.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you very much. And yeah, it was great having you.
Yeah, thank you. It was a pleasure.